Hey, it's good to be back. Last week I was out. Our family was on vacation. This week we spent the week at the beach, so had a lot of good quality family time. The kids had a blast. I can't say it was super relaxing, but the kids enjoyed it, and so we got back late last night, but it is good to be back. We were able to visit with some friends at their church down in Fort Walton last week. That was good to visit, but it's even better to be here this morning. So thank you for allowing our family some time away together, but it is good to be back. Let me pray for us, and we'll get started. God, thank you so much for this church and their love for you, the love that we share together as your people, that we share a common faith that binds us closer than anything else can. God, we thank you so much for your love, for your grace in our life, for your son Jesus. Help us to live our lives the way he did, with the same grace and compassion and love that he showed us. I pray that you would help us extend that to other people. And it's in your name I pray. Amen. So it's almost football season. If you're a football fan like me, July and August are the absolute worst months of the year because football's almost here, but it seems so far away. Okay, July and August seem to just drag on, okay, because football season's right around the corner. So if you indulge me this morning, let me start off talking a little bit about some football, okay? If you're not a football fan, I understand, but you know, just wait. It'll pay off, I promise. For most of my life, the Detroit Lions have been the laughing stock of the NFL, okay? The lovable losers that just never won, right? They hardly ever made the playoffs. And in fact, from 1991 until 2024, they did not win a single playoff game. In over 30 years, that franchise did not win a single playoff game. They lost an NFL record 9 straight games. Their last NFC championship game appearance was in 1991. And they're only one of 4 teams in the entire NFL that have never appeared in a Super Bowl. They're one of only 2 teams to ever finish a season, an entire season, without a single win. Okay, it's them and the Cleveland Browns, okay? 2 of the worst teams in the league. So, absolutely terrible for over 30 years. But in 2020, the Detroit Lions, they fired their general manager, Bob Quinn. They fired their head coach, Matt Patricia, after 3 straight losing seasons. And Lions president Rod Wood hired an assistant coach from the New Orleans Saints named Dan Campbell to be their new head coach. He wasn't a flashy hire. He wasn't a big name. In fact, most people outside of coaching circles didn't even know who he was. He'd only ever been a head coach one time, and it was for only half a season as an interim. Okay, there's a whole lot of other people that would have been bigger hires than Dan Campbell. But the Lions front office, when they were asked why they would hire him, they said, well, they wanted someone to help build their culture, build their identity. And in his initial press conference, Dan Campbell said that he was going to rebuild this team by going back to the fundamentals of football. Just discipline in the boring, everyday stuff. Full effort at practice. Recruiting players for their character more than just their talent. Having a standard that did not bend, putting in the grunt work every single day, just getting back to the fundamentals of football. Nothing flashy, no big new offensive scheme, not going after high-profile athletes that are always giving sports media sound clips or sound bites to talk about. Just the fundamentals. The first season did not go great. They ended their year 3-13, only 3 wins, 13 losses. By 2023, though, things started to turn around. They won their first division championship in 30 years. The next year, 2024, they won the franchise's first playoff game since 1991 by simply going back to the fundamentals, discipline in the everyday. The Detroit Lions franchise was rebuilt. Now, you may be thinking, okay, you talked about football. What does that have to do with marriage? Because this sermon series is about marriage. What do the Detroit Lions and marriages have in common? Surprisingly enough, quite a bit. The Song of Solomon, chapter 4, teaches us that marriages are built, and if they break down, they are rebuilt the exact same way. Simply going back to the fundamentals. Discipline in the everyday, doing the little things day in and day out. And you know what the Bible calls that? The Bible calls that faithfulness. Faithfulness is what marriages are built on. We're in the last week of this sermon series called Hot Summer Nights, where we have been talking about marriage and relationships, how they end, but also how they're restored. Now, beyond that, we're talking about faithfulness, because faithfulness is a trait all Christians, whether you're married or not, ought to display every single day, because God is faithful. And God is faithful because it's a part of his very nature. He is called a faithful God because he always shows up every single time. He always comes through on what he promised. 2 weeks ago, we talked about how often our desires carry us away from being faithful. We put our own desires before the promises that we've made, before the needs of other people. Marriages break down because one spouse puts their own needs before the other person. But we talked about how if we keep our desires in check, we will be able to be faithful the way he is faithful. Last week, Ted Brumley filled in preaching. I appreciate him. I appreciate his message, the message he brought. He talked about the story of the woman caught in adultery, how it doesn't matter what happens to us, no matter what we do in life, there is always redemption. There is forgiveness through Jesus Christ. And grace in a relationship can heal any wound, no matter how deep. We're going to conclude this series this morning by looking at Song of Solomon. We'll be looking at chapter 4. So if you have your Bibles, you can go ahead and turn there if you want to follow along there. But Song of Solomon chapter 4 is an absolute masterclass in intimacy within a marriage. But it can apply to any relationship, friendships, dating relationships, family relationships. Now, what is in this chapter can apply to any relationship, because intimacy in a relationship is important, whether it's in marriage or whether it's in any other relationship. Early Christian sources state that ancient Jewish tradition would not allow young people to read this book until the age of 30 because of the graphic content inside. It's not super graphic, but it's a little bit more graphic than other parts of the Bible. But this book is actually a song that it was often read at Passover because it is a picture of God's faithfulness to his people. It was a psalm, just like the book of Psalms, but it was attributed to King Solomon. And it was written during his reign as king. This song is a love song from a groom to his bride. The first 3 chapters of the book are the courtship phase of the relationship, and then it transitions into a wedding procession. And here, when we get to chapter 4, is the consummation of the wedding. In this chapter, we will see what builds intimacy in a marriage, what builds intimacy in any relationship. John Gottman is a psychologist best known for decades of research on marriage and relationship stability that he conducted through what he calls the Love Lab at the University of Washington. He and his team have observed interactions between couples. They have identified patterns that predict divorce versus a lasting marriage. And what he has found in this decades-long research is strikingly similar to the things that are found here in Song of Solomon, chapter 4, that was written 3,000 years ago. Gottman's research found that intimacy in a relationship is built by going back to the fundamentals. Things that are pretty easy for kids, things that are pretty easy when you're first dating, things that are pretty easy when you're not around the other person 24 hours a day. You can still put up a front. You can still act like your breath doesn't smell bad in the morning. But the fundamentals of a relationship are pretty easy because they involve just basic human compassion, basic human love that isn't broken down by insecurities or fears. The basic fundamentals of a relationship are habitual spoken admiration, communicating vulnerability, and consistent trustworthy behavior. Those are the three biggest things that Gottman's research found that lead to lasting, healthy relationships. Habitual spoken admiration, communicating vulnerability, and consistent trustworthy behavior. All three of these things are found here in Song of Solomon, chapter 4. Let's read that together. Behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. How romantic. Your teeth are like a flock of shorn ewes that have come up from the washing, all of which bear twins, and not one among them has lost its young. Your lips are like a scarlet thread, and your mouth is lovely. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built in rows of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. And your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle that graze among the lilies until the day breathes and the shadows flee. I will go away to the mountain of myrrh and the hill of incense. You are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you. This passage is called a wasf. A wasf is an Arabic literary genre of poetry that describes a person's body feature by feature using metaphors drawn from nature. That's exactly what this passage is. It's a wasf. And this was a common form of poetry in the ancient Near East. So there's many other examples of this type of poetry outside the Bible from this exact same time period. All of these descriptions of Solomon's bride are pastoral descriptions. They are agricultural references. They are things, metaphors that someone living in an agrarian culture in the Middle East would completely understand. These are not physical descriptions. He's not describing what his wife's features look like necessarily. He's not expressing how attracted he is to them. These are descriptions of how these features make him feel. He's making emotional statements about her value to him. These metaphors are describing what she means to him. He's not really saying this feature of your appearance looks like this and I'm attracted to it. That's not really the point of what he is saying. It's so much as he's saying, this feature of your appearance makes me feel like this, and it reminds me of this, and it is valuable to me, similar to this other thing. Does that make sense? So he used the metaphor of a dove, right? Because doves in that culture had multiple connotations. They were an animal that were offered in purification rites in the temple. And so they were associated with purity. Doves equal purity. They're a symbol of purity. Doves were also widely known to mate for life, so they became a symbol of loyalty and monogamous devotion. They were an image of gentleness and vulnerability. The eyes are the sight of desire. They represent exclusive attention. What you're looking at is the only thing you see. That's what the eyes represent. So what Solomon was saying when your eyes are doves is that she is pure. She is faithful. She is singularly devoted to him. That's the metaphor of your eyes are like doves. Hair like a flock of goats down the slopes of Gilead. To us today, that sounds like a funny thing to say, but he was referring to something that was real back then, that everyone knew. When I was in high school, I had a friend who was trying to help another friend ask a girl out on a date. And the guy was really shy around her. He was really awkward. And so my friend told him, hey, you need to go and tell her something about herself that is beautiful. Go say something that you think is beautiful. And so he walked up to her and, he stood there and, hummed and hawed a little bit. And then he goes, your eyes are as brown as the Ohio River. He did not get a date with her, but that's what this sounds like, right? Your hair is like a flock of goats down the slopes of Gilead. But Gilead was an actual place. It was very lush. It had green pasture land that was used for grazing flocks of livestock. The goats of Gilead had long black hair. And so a large flock of these black goats with long hair moving together down a hillside would look from a distance like a dark, glossy mass of hair in motion. It would not just be individual animals, but it would be one continuous flowing movement similar to long, dark, glossy, flowing hair. This comparison is saying that her hair is voluminous, it's thick, it's shiny, it's dark, it flows like a river of silk, something that you'd see on a Pantene commercial or something, okay? But again, this is not about the attractiveness of her hair. It's about what the appearance of her hair says about her status. Earlier in the song, Solomon described his bride as sun-darkened from working in vineyards. So what he's telling us is that this woman that he has married is a working girl. She comes from a blue-collar family. She works out in the fields. She does manual labor. But a lady in that culture at that time with glossy, styled, flowing hair, like he is describing with this goat metaphor, would not be someone from a lower class family. She would have access to oils and fragrances and different things that she could use to style her hair that people who worked manual labor did not have access to. She would have the free time to be able to style her hair, because it took a lot more time. It takes a long time now, but it took even longer then to do what it takes to style your hair. Someone who worked in the fields from sunup to sundown did not have the time to spend on their hair. The time that it would take to make it look like a shampoo commercial, okay? What he's doing is he's elevating her status. He's saying that she is this low to middle class girl, but in his eyes, she's like royalty. Now I won't go through each and every one of these metaphors for time. I'll be here all day. If you want to know what all they mean, there's commentaries that can help you there, but I'll just go through a couple more. When he says her lips are like scarlet thread, scarlet was a rare and expensive dye in the ancient world. It required a significant amount of labor to produce even just a small amount of scarlet dye. And so scarlet indicated preciousness, something that was rare, something that was very valuable. He's not just saying her lips are red, okay? He's making a comment about her mouth, okay? A thread is thin and fine. So he's saying her lips are well-defined, they're elegant. Again, it's not talking about the appearance. He's talking about what comes out of the lips. He said her mouth is lovely, meaning the words that come out of her mouth, the words she speaks, her laughter, her voice are lovely to him. Her words are well-defined and elegant. He said, until the day breathes and shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and hill of frankincense. Myrrh and frankincense, they're very expensive perfumes. In chapter 3, he used that exact same pairing, myrrh and incense, to describe the bride herself. And so the mountains of myrrh, the hills of frankincense, he's referring to her. He wants to be around her a lot. He wants an abundance of her presence. And he says, until the day breathes, until the day, is born or becomes alive, and the shadows of the night flee away. He's talking about dawn. So he's saying, until dawn, I will be near you. I want to delight in your presence all night long. So after the wedding ceremony, after the wedding reception, he's saying they're going to spend the night together, okay? So that's as racy as it gets around here, all right? But what's happening here is that Solomon is speaking words of value to her. He's being vulnerable with her. He is expressing how she makes him feel. He's expressing his emotions to her. It isn't just about saying things in a poetic and romantic way. It's about the content of what he's saying to her. That's the significant part. Intimacy in a marriage is not built through romantic poems. It isn't built by reciting Emily Dickinson or something like that. Intimacy is built through sharing how the other person makes you feel. Sharing your emotions. The fundamentals of a relationship. So often in marriage, we do share how someone makes us feel, but often it's in a negative way, right? We share criticisms. What we think the other person ought to be doing that they're not doing. Something that they are doing that they need to stop doing, right? That's the things that we tend to share in a marriage. Growing up, I pretty much ate a bowl of cereal for breakfast every single day. Okay, one of the highlights of my week was going to the grocery store with my mom, and she let me pick out my box of cereal for the week. Okay, I lived a really boring childhood. But anyway, I would eat cereal every single day for breakfast, and I went like 23 years of my life without ever realizing that apparently I am the noisiest cereal eater that has ever lived. And it wasn't until I got married and my bride let me know that I wasn't allowed to eat cereal for breakfast anymore, okay? Because I was too noisy, apparently. But that's typically what is expressed in a marriage, right? You do this, I don't like it, so stop, right? You are not doing this, you need to do this, right? That's the things that we tend to share. But marriages are built upon speaking positive, affirming statements to one another. Intimacy erodes in a marriage when you stop saying positive, affirming statements to each other. But if your intimacy erodes, it can be rebuilt by starting to once again speak positive, affirming statements to each other. Statements of admiration. Things you admire about the other person, how they make you feel. What is something that you delight in about them? Something that you appreciate, something you're thankful for, something that makes you happy. And these aren't just one-off statements, okay? 5 of the 7 affirmations that Solomon said in chapter 4 are repeated multiple times throughout this book. It isn't just speaking a positive affirmation once. Building intimacy in a marriage requires you to have a habit of expressing statements of admiration to your spouse. So step 1 in rebuilding intimacy, if you have stopped doing this in your marriage, start doing it today. Habitually speak admirations to your spouse. Habitually tell them what you admire about them. Sometimes when you're around someone so often, you tend to overlook a lot of the positive things. When the relationship is new, you talk about them a lot, but then over time they just become normalized and you forget to mention it. It becomes difficult to say these things. It becomes difficult to create the habit, once again, to speak these positive affirmations. So a good way to do this, to build this habit, is to just take some time, sit down, and write out 10 to 15 things that you like about your spouse, things that you admire about them. And have those 10 to 15 things in your back pocket, right? And then express those repeatedly. Okay, not every 5 seconds, okay? I know some guys will be like, all right, this is what I wrote down, right? No. Just keep them in your back pocket and make it a point to say at least one of those things every single day. Whenever an opportunity presents itself to express your admiration, say one of those things that's on your list. And then, after 10 to 15 days, you get through the list, you ran out of things to say, start over, okay? if you go through that list 10 to 15 times, if you have 15 things that you repeat 4 times, that's 60 days. That's 2 months of you speaking positive affirmations to your spouse. If you do that, come back and let me know what happens, okay? Well, let's continue in verse 8. Come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come with me from Lebanon. Depart from the peak of Amana, from the peak of Senir and Hermon, from the den of lions, from the mountains of leopards. That's where she's from. She's from Lebanon, so he wants to take her home with him. You have captivated my heart, my sister, my bride. You've captivated my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one jewel of your necklace. How beautiful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much better is your love than wine, and the fragrance of your oils than any spice. Your lips drip nectar, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. Brene Brown is a research professor at the University of Houston. She has done extensive research into vulnerability and shame. She describes vulnerability as handing over to someone else the power to emotionally hurt you. In her research, she found that vulnerability includes uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And this plays out in any relationship, really, but especially in marriage. Uncertainty is not knowing how the other person will respond before you say something. You're thinking about something, you want to share something with someone, and you just don't know how they're going to react. That's uncertainty. Risk is the real possibility that if you say this thing, you could be rejected. You could be misunderstood. You could be seen as too needy. You could be seen as too much. You could be seen as someone who doesn't have what it takes. That's risk. Emotional exposure is letting your internal state, what you're thinking and feeling on the inside, be visible to the other person rather than managed or curated. What we tend to do at the beginning of a relationship is to curate our image, to not let other people really know us. We put up walls to keep them from knowing who we are. But emotional exposure is taking those walls down. It is allowing someone else to get to know you, who you really are on the inside. That's emotional exposure. And so you express something on the inside to someone else, not knowing how they will respond, and you're risking getting hurt by their response. That's vulnerability. When you first ask someone out on a date, not knowing what their response will be, that's vulnerability. When you say something to someone that you've never said to anyone, that's being vulnerable. When you ask a question that you don't know how they're going to answer, that's being vulnerable. The more you are vulnerable in your relationship, in your marriage, the more intimate it will be. Intimacy is built through vulnerability. And in verses 8 through 11, Solomon is being vulnerable. Now think about it. He is the king of Israel. He's the most powerful man in the world. And he is telling this field worker that she has captivated his heart. Some translations say stolen. The most powerful man in the world was overpowered by this woman with just one glance of her eyes, with one jewel of her necklace. Not a grand gesture, a single glance. He's admitting that even the smallest, most ordinary thing from her has overpowered him. That's a disclosure of vulnerability. When he says, how much better is your love than wine, he's actually repeating back to her the same compliment that she gave him in chapter 1. Repeating back words that the other person has said signals attentiveness. It's a kind of relational mirroring where admiration isn't just flowing in one direction. It's actually reciprocated. He's showing that he was listening so closely to what she was saying that he remembered it exactly word for word. This is him being vulnerable, him exposing his emotions to her. In verse 11, he says, your lips drip nectar, honey and milk are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. This isn't just one image, not just one metaphor, but it's actually multiple metaphors stacked on top of each other. He's not giving a careful, composed, measuring statement. It isn't though he wrote it out and he's repeating what he wrote down. It's just flowing out of him. His emotions are overflowing. It's multiple things he's saying over and over again. So the piling up of these descriptions indicates to us that his emotions are just spilling out of him. He isn't composed. He isn't a chiseled, untouchable mountain of a king. He is a puddle of emotional mess. His emotions are just spewing out of him. He's being vulnerable with her. Intimacy is built through vulnerability, but not vulnerability alone. Vulnerability that is matched, that is reciprocated. There is a two-part cycle to vulnerability that creates intimacy. The first part is self-disclosure. One person discloses something emotionally significant, a thought, a feeling, a fear, a need, but vulnerability alone does not build intimacy. The second part that's necessary is reciprocation. Vulnerability builds intimacy when it is reciprocated by the other person. The partner responds to this vulnerability with understanding, with validation, with a caring response. Intimacy does not work if the vulnerability is one-sided. If you are missing intimacy in your marriage, it's probably because emotional vulnerability is not being reciprocated. Or it hasn't been reciprocated, and so vulnerability has stopped. Both people need to be emotionally vulnerable for intimacy to be built in a marriage. So to rebuild intimacy in a marriage, step one, begin habitually speaking admirations to your spouse. Step two, be vulnerable with them and reciprocate when they are being vulnerable with you. And the third step in rebuilding intimacy in your marriage is consistent, trustworthy behavior. Verse 12. A garden locked is my sister, my bride, a spring locked, a fountain sealed. Your shoots are an orchard of pomegranates with all choicest fruits, henna with nard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, with all trees of frankincense, myrrh and aloes, with all choice spices. A garden fountain, a well of living water and flowing streams from Lebanon. Awake, O north wind, and come, O south wind. Blow upon my garden, let its spices flow. In this final section, he described his bride as a garden locked. It's got a fence around it with a gate that's locked. A spring locked, a fountain sealed. A locked garden is a private and protected garden. It's maintained, it's protected. The garden is not wild, it's not neglected, it's locked. It's guarded. The fountain in the garden has a seal, meaning that it has not been broken into. A garden like this is not something that's cultivated by going out to it once or twice. It requires continuous, constant labor. He described her as an orchard with pomegranates and the choicest fruits, henna and nard, saffron, all this variety of spices. An orchard with this degree of density, this variety, it requires ongoing cultivation, watering, pruning, protecting it from pests and wildlife, seasonal care, repeated over years and years. The abundance of this orchard that he is singing praises about is evidence of sustained labor, hard work. This metaphor describes an ongoing condition sustained over time. Not just a one-time decision. It's describing trustworthiness, faithfulness. Trustworthiness in a relationship is an ongoing condition that is sustained over time. It's not proven by one faithful choice. It is proven by the existence of boundaries that hold continuously day after day and never being crossed. Without ever after having to say, these are my boundaries. It's just expected. These are my boundaries. It's just an unspoken, well-established truth. I will always do this, and I will never do that. I know that my spouse will always do this, and they will never do that. That's trustworthiness. The metaphor applied to marriage describes a person who is trustworthy year after year because the fruits of this person's actions are repeated faithfulness over time. Verse 15 says that this fountain, this garden fountain, is a well of living water and flowing streams. Literature from ancient Israel made a sharp distinction between a cistern and living water. A cistern is a pit that's dug into the ground that collects and stores rainwater. It doesn't move. It eventually gets stagnant. It starts to smell. Over time, it dries up. But living water is a stream. It's a spring where water is moving. It's continuously refreshed. Jeremiah used this exact same contrast between a cistern and living water when he was talking about Israel's sin, when he was talking about their forsaking God. Their faithfulness to God had become stagnant and it eventually dried up. But Solomon described his wife as a fountain of living water. Her faithfulness to him was continuous. It was continuously being refreshed. That's the picture of consistency. Consistent faithfulness over time. And the bride reciprocated. She said, "Come blow upon my garden." She's opening herself up to him because of his faithfulness. He has been faithful over time. He has shown consistent trustworthiness. And now she's inviting him into her heart. Research consistently shows that trust in a relationship is built over time based on three components: predictability, dependability, and faith. The world tells us through media, romantic movies, songs about love, that romance is created through spontaneity, right? Unpredictability. It's just a whirlwind romance, right? But in reality, when your behavior is so consistent that it's predictable, you have watched them enough times to know exactly what they will do, how they will respond. That is how intimacy is built. Through consistency, through the stability of a partner's behaviors. They are so trustworthy that it's predictable. That is true romance. Some people don't like to hear that, but that's what it is. They are so trustworthy that it's predictable. It's also built through dependability. Vulnerability is risking emotional harm, but dependability is knowing that you're safe with this person. You're emotionally safe. You're relationally safe because of their constant behavior over time. You've been vulnerable with them enough times to know that you can be vulnerable again. The risk of harm in this relationship is minimal. You can be extremely vulnerable with them because you know how dependable they are. That's intimacy. And faith is the third component of trust in a relationship. It's about having such confidence in the relationship, such confidence in their responsiveness, the caring that you expect when you're vulnerable, that you know how they're going to respond in the face of an uncertain future. It's trust built over consistent, trustworthy behavior after consistent, trustworthy behavior. Predictability and dependability, they're backward looking. They're built by evidence. He's shown up on time before, so I know he's going to do it again. She's kept her word before, so I expect it again. That's predictability. That's dependability. But faith is forward looking. It covers situations that past evidence does not actually guarantee. We've never faced these circumstances before. So I can't predict how they're going to respond. There are circumstances that will happen in the future that you cannot predict. A diagnosis, a financial collapse, a season of life that you could never see coming. Predictability and dependability cannot cover untested ground. But faith is the belief that no matter what happens, your partner will show up. They'll be there. They will continue to show trustworthy behavior even in the most unpredictable circumstances. Intimacy in a marriage is more than physical intimacy. That's a part of it, but it's not all of it. It's also emotional intimacy, being known by this other person and knowing them, sharing fears with one another, sharing needs with one another, sharing your inner life, your inner person with this other person. It involves emotion or intellectual intimacy, sharing thoughts and ideas, having honest disagreement without it threatening the relationship. It involves spiritual intimacy, sharing a faith with one another, sharing worship together, sharing a sense of common purpose with one God. All of this is intimacy in a marriage, and it is built through habitually speaking admiration, communicating vulnerability, and consistent trustworthy behavior over time. Intimacy is not something that you can manufacture. Intimacy is not something that's created overnight. It is something that is built through these three things sustained over time. Intimacy in marriage is the experience of being fully known and still fully wanted. You are known through your vulnerable disclosure, and you're still wanted through their consistent, dependable love that holds over time. That's intimacy in marriage. And if it's lost, it can still be rebuilt by going back to the fundamentals, doing these fundamental things of a relationship. And here's the thing. There is nobody who knows you more intimately than God. He knows you better than you know yourself. He knows every flaw. He knows every mistake. He knows every single sin you have ever committed. And he still desired you so much that he willingly sent his son into this world to die on your behalf so that you could exist for all eternity in his presence. Marriage is the picture of how God loves his people. And that love was displayed on the cross. Let me pray for us. God, thank you so much for Jesus and the picture of faithful, intimate love. God, there aren't words to describe how intimately you know us and yet still desire us. God, we thank you. We praise your name for your love. God, I pray that you would help us to exhibit that same love in all our relationships, but especially our marriages. God, I pray that the marriages that we have as your people would display that same love, that it would show people how deeply and intimately you love them. God, I pray that this church would be a picture of love, by how we never give up on one another, we always show up for one another, and we take care of each other. God, help us to have strong relationships, strong marriages. Help us to be good friends, be good family members, good spouses. God, we love you. We thank you. It's in your name I pray. Amen.